Hello, everyone, and welcome to another movie flashback number 27. If you are new to this channel, click the subscribe button below for future notifications and updates. Click the like button to share this content with other movie fans. In terms of movie anniversaries, the original Color Purple has not been talked about very much in the media this year, but it is one of the greatest movies ever made. And it also holds a record that should make the Academy look embarrassed. So they have some explaining to do, and I'll explain it later on in the flashback. So, in my opinion, this is one of the most important flashbacks I will make this year. The Color Purple is considered to be an epic film. It was directed by Steven Spielberg. It was based on the novel with the same name by Alice Walker, and it starred Whoopi Goldberg, Danny Glover, and Oprah Winfrey. It was released in theaters on December 18th, 1985. So this month we are celebrating its 40th anniversary. It had a budget of $15 million. It grossed $98 million at the box office. So it was an instant success. And the movie clocks in at 2 hours, 34 minutes. The story behind this film is a fascinating one. The movie was based on the novel by Alice Walker, and it is described as an epistolary novel, which is a novel written as a series of letters between characters. Frankenstein and Dracula are two more examples of epistolary novels. The Color Purple won the Pulitzer Prize for fiction in 1983 and the National Book Award for fiction. As a matter of fact, Alice Walker became the first Black woman to win the Pulitzer Prize in the category of fiction. However, as much as it has been celebrated, the novel has always been a controversial one. The protagonist, Celie, played by Whoopi Goldberg, is a victim of sexual violence at the hands of her stepfather and her husband. And to make matters worse, her marriage to Mr., played by Danny Glover, was an arranged one. So in the novel, Celie writes letters to God. Another issue is Shug Avery, played by Margaret Avery, who is a jazz and blues singer and Mr.'s mistress. You would think Celie would be mad that her husband is cheating and he expects her to welcome Shug inside the house, but over time, Shug and Celie develop a close relationship and Celie falls in love with Shug. It makes sense because the one person who loved Celie was her sister Nettie, and Mr. kept Nettie away from Celie to the point where Celie thinks Nettie is dead. So she holds on to Shug because she needs to be loved. And the novel came out during a time when the Pride community was an underground community that was treated like outcasts. So Celie falls in love with Shug, and it seems that Shug is bisexual. I did not read the novel, I am just going by what I read in my research. Because of the success of the novel, Hollywood became interested in making an adaptation of it. But Alice Walker was reluctant to sell the film rights because of Hollywood's portrayal of women and Black people in the past. However, her friends thought it would be a good idea to sell the rights, with the hope that representation of Black people would improve. Walker decided to enter into a contract agreement with producers John Peters and Peter Guber with certain stipulations. Number one, she would be the consultant on the project. Number two, most of the cast must be Black American. And number three, she gets to approve the final draft of the script. Menno Mages was the Dutch screenwriter hired to write the script. Quincy Jones joined the project as a producer, and he asked Steven Spielberg to direct the film. Walker had her doubts. Even Spielberg had his doubts because he knew nothing about the world of the story. But Jones believed in him, so Spielberg read the novel and he said he was deeply touched by the story, so he said yes. Jones went on to compose the soundtrack, which was the first movie in which Spielberg did not work with his longtime collaborator, John Williams. From there, Walker, Spielberg, and Jones decided to find actors that were unknown at the time. Whoopi Goldberg was a stand-up comic at the time, Oprah Winfrey was a talk show host on a morning program, and Danny Glover was a theater actor. As a matter of fact, other actors in the film came from theater. When it came time to casting for the role of Shug Avery, Spielberg offered the part to Shaka Khan and Tina Turner, but they both turned it down. Patti LaBelle and Sheryl Lee Ralph auditioned for the part, but they did not get it. So it went to actress Margaret Avery, and her singing parts were dubbed by the singer Tata Vega. The story takes place in Georgia, but the movie was shot in North Carolina, and the scenes of Nettie's life in Africa were shot in Kenya. Production started in March 1985, and it ended by the end of the summer. So for a movie of that scope, Spielberg shot the movie relatively quickly, and it seemed that post-production was also a quick phase as well. The movie was released in December, and just like the book, the movie had its own controversies as well. Well, a lot of black intellectuals, including James Baldwin, did not like the movie at all. The general complaint was the portrayal of black people, especially black men, were stereotypical. One person wrote, and I quote, "Nearly all the men in the movie are depicted as cold-hearted, violent abusers," end quote. Some people thought Spielberg's handle of the subject matter was too Disney. Spielberg said in past interviews that he did tone down the lesbian relationship between Celie and Shug in order to get a PG-13 rating. Now, I personally thought he made the right choice. The fact that he put in a kissing scene is actually brave, given the fact that this is 1985, and also the fact that he agreed to Alice Walker's terms in the contracts, which shows that he had respect for her when it came to adapting her book. So, technically speaking, Walker did get the movie that she wanted, which to me says a lot, because if you're going to adapt a book and the author is still alive, you want to make sure that the author is pleased with it. So that's why I say that Walker got the movie she wanted. Another issue at that time was people thought this movie should have been directed by a black director instead of Spielberg. Keep in mind, Spielberg is white and Jewish. But I got to disagree with that idea as well. How many black filmmakers were working in the 1980s? That's a fair question. Now, I was thinking of Oscar Micheaux, but he died in the 1940s. I was thinking of Julie Dash. She was the first black American woman to direct a feature film, but her first film came out in 1991. You could hire a black filmmaker who directed movies during the blaxploitation era back in the 70s. But what Quincy Jones was looking for when he decided on Spielberg was the emotional weight of E.T. He was not looking at the genre because Spielberg made action blockbusters. It was his ability to get the audience to care about the protagonist. That's why I assume Quincy Jones wanted Spielberg, and to a certain extent, Jones was right all along, which leads to the good news. Roger Ebert thought that it was the best film of 1985. He thought Whoopi Goldberg should have won the Best Lead Actress Oscar. His co-host, Gene Siskel, had incredible things to say about the movie. He said the film was triumphantly emotional and brave. He thought the movie was a plea for respect for black women. Filmmaker Oliver Stone spoke about the film in an interview in the past. He said, and I quote, "It is an excellent movie, and it was an attempt to deal with an issue that had been overlooked, and it wouldn't have been made if it hadn't been Spielberg. It's not like everyone says he ruined the book. That's horseshit." He really did say that. Nobody was going to do the book. He made the book live again. End quote. I even understand Oliver Stone's point. When you put a movie like this in historical perspective, the question is, who is willing to make a movie with a black female protagonist? Number two, who is willing to make a movie in which there is a black gaze on white people and not the other way around, which is what we see most of the time in Hollywood movies? When Celie talks about Sophia's arrest, how she phrases it, the white folks got her. And keep in mind, Sophia is played by Oprah Winfrey. The third question that I also thought about is, without a great director like Spielberg, would that movie had made $98 million at the box office? Against a $15 million budget, that is considered to be a success. So, yeah, maybe with someone else in the director's chair, it maybe would not have grossed $98 million. I also agree with Gene Siskel. The movie is a plea for respect for black women. When Celie leaves Mr. for good, there is a scene where Mr.'s father visits him and he sees the house in a disarray. And his father said what I would expect a man of his generation to say. Keep in mind, the story takes place from the 1910s to the 1930s, if I remember correctly. Mr.'s father says to him, "You need a woman to come in and cook and clean this place." And it was the first time Mr. said no to his father in the entire film. And he actually kicked him out of the house and said to his father, "Bye-bye." Mr. slowly wised up to the fact that the old-fashioned way of looking at men and treating women has failed him as a father and as a husband. So when Mr. finally pays for Nettie to come back into the country, there is a scene where Mr. is at the immigration office at the end of the film. For me, that was Mr.'s way of saying he was sorry because he knows how much he screwed up. Celie has no way of knowing how to reach Nettie, and Nettie is using the last address she has. So the reunion between Celie and Nettie at the end could only happen if Mr. arranged it. Sometimes I wonder if everyone is watching the same movie, because you can't fairly judge a movie without watching it until the end. So yes, the men in the film are portrayed as violent predators, but the most evil of them all, Mr., somewhat redeems himself at the end. Before Celie leaves, he doesn't realize that what he did was wrong. He is behaving the way he was taught to behave. And Celie, towards the end of the movie, really during the entire third act, Celie is no longer doing what she was taught to do. She decided to take her life back and live life on her own terms. And she realizes that she deserves to be happy. This movie was nominated for 11 Oscars, which at the time was historic. And let me read the categories. Best Original Song from Miss Celie's Blues, written by Quincy Jones, Rod Temperton, and Lionel Richie. Rod Temperton is the same songwriter that wrote Thriller for Michael Jackson. As a matter of fact, he wrote 3 songs on the Thriller album. It was also nominated for Best Original Score, Best Makeup, Best Costume Design, Best Cinematography, Best Art Direction. That category was changed to Production Design. Best Adapted Screenplay. Oprah Winfrey and Margaret Avery were nominated in the Best Supporting Actress category. Whoopi Goldberg was nominated for Best Lead Actress. And Steven Spielberg, Quincy Jones, Kathleen Kennedy, and Frank Marshall were nominated for Best Picture, which is the award that goes to the producers. This movie holds the record as the movie with the most Oscar nominations without any wins. It was practically shut out. The Academy has some explaining to do after 40 years, okay? Yes, it still has some explaining to do. It holds the record as the movie with the most Oscar nominations without the Best Director nomination. It is also a movie with a black protagonist that has received the most Oscar nominations in film history, followed by 2018's Black Panther, which received 7 nominations. However, that movie won 3 Oscars. That movie is followed by 2 Denzel Washington movies. Fences got 4 nominations. Macbeth got 3. We don't know if we will ever see a movie like The Color Purple ever again in our lifetimes, and I don't care what anyone says. A movie does not get 11 nominations without a great director. Spielberg is the reason why it is a masterpiece. You cannot deny how great all the elements are and how they came together. I'm talking about the cinematography, the costume design, the script, the acting. Even Spielberg knew how to get great performances out of the entire cast. 3 actresses were nominated. That's Spielberg doing what he does. Now, I am not saying that they are not talented in their own right. Goldberg ended up winning a supporting actress Oscar for Ghost. But to see 3 actors get nominated for the same movie, that is the work of the director. So the question is, how did Spielberg do it? Well, in my opinion, he did it because he saw the characters as human beings, especially Celie. There is a famous dinner scene where Celie tells Mr. "You took my sister Nettie away from me, and you knew that she was the only somebody in this world that loved me." I will never forget that scene. There is, in my opinion, I think that was the story Spielberg wanted to tell and what he wanted to focus on. So Celie saying that in the famous dinner scene, I think that was Spielberg's thesis for the film. Another thing that I was thinking about as I was writing this flashback, there's another scene where the scene starts off with Suge performing a gig at a juke joint. And Celie and Sophia were there. And then all of a sudden she hears a gospel song. And she stops singing. Her band stops playing. And so she looks at one of her bandmates and she starts singing along to the gospel song that she's hearing. Then she leaves the juke joint and her band follows her. Her audience follows her. Celie and Sophia follows her. And nobody knows where Suge is going. They're just following her. So she decides to walk into her father's church. Suge's father is a minister. So she walks into her father's church and she starts singing along with the choir that's standing behind the minister. So she walks up to her father, gives him a hug and says, "See, Daddy, singers have soul too." And the minister gives Suge a hug. And so here's the thing. The movie doesn't quite explain why Suge and her minister father had a falling out. All you know is that they're not talking. And she was trying to reconcile at some point in the movie, but he walked away. So this time she's reconciling again. And he finally embraces her and she starts bawling. And the band starts playing and the choir continues singing. It's a very powerful scene. I think that scene is probably the reason why Margaret Avery got an Oscar nomination, because every time I see it, I cry. But every time I watch the movie, I cry at the end. Okay. It never fails. That's why I can't watch The Color Purple too often, because every time I watch the end, I start bawling. But yeah. But anyway, all of these different elements gives the movie its universal appeal. You don't have to be Black to appreciate this movie. We all want to be loved and to love. Because I did not read the novel, and I am not sure if Celie's relationship with Suge was a lifeline for her during Nettie's absence. But the fact that Celie was able to get herself out of the hell of a marriage and find some kind of happiness and joy for herself and by herself. Celie is brave. And so Celie's bravery is clearly shown in the film, thanks to Spielberg. So that is all for today, my friends. Let me know your feelings about The Color Purple. Do you like the movie? Do you dislike the movie? Do you agree with the black intellectuals who did not like this version? I will see you next time with more movie flashbacks. This, I must say, was a long movie flashback. This year, I've been trying to keep the flashbacks as short and as tight as possible. But with The Color Purple, I had a lot to say. It's one of my favorite films, and I personally love it. The last three flashbacks of 2025 will be fun in tone, okay? I promise. But anyway, I am looking forward to the next three movie flashbacks. I'm so excited, and I hope you are too. Take care and happy holidays.